Welcome aboard. It's time for a little cruise with Dora the Boatress. Let's discover the world of boating as we navigate the waters together. And now, here's Dora.
Welcome to the show. Dora Miles with Dockside Live, the Boatress, coming to you with, I have Caroline, I'm not going to say it right again, Mantell,
you got it.
I said it right. Yay. So she is with Boat History Report, you guys. And for starters, I want to tell you how I learned about Boat History Report. I'm going to try to pull up a screen share real quick and see if I can get this. We just practiced this, you guys. So, but you all know how I am with my screen shares. I never can get them to work right. Can you see it? It's coming. Okay, so everybody knows the interview that I just did about 2 weeks ago with Eric Fisher, boat insurance guy. And on his Facebook page about a week ago, 5 days ago, he posted this, and it is a boat history report that apparently he uses with his customers who are going to be purchasing new boats. He says, I can't stress this enough. If you are buying a used boat, order a boat history report. It can save you thousands of dollars. And this was an individual who was trying to pass off a boat as mint condition. And they said, if by mint condition you meant Hurricane Ian total loss, then I guess it was right. So I'm going to kind of throw this back to Caroline here and let her kind of introduce herself and explain what she does. And I'm going to try to stop the share. Here we go. Yay, I did it.
Woo! Off to a good start. So my name is Caroline Mantell. I'm with Boat History Report. I'm the Director of Business Development, and I've been with them for about 12 years. The company itself has been in business. We're in our 19th year of business. So we joke that we're the industry's best kept secret, even though it's becoming more and more necessary, especially with each passing hurricane. And you wouldn't buy a car without a Car Fax or an auto check. And at this point, you certainly shouldn't be buying a boat without a boat history report. So that boat in particular there that Eric posted, I can't tell you the number of boats that we've seen coming from Hurricane Ian. I'm down in South Florida. I'm actually from the coast, from pretty close to ground zero where Hurricane Ian hit. I still have family there. And the number of boats that are just decimated and are back on the market without any disclosure of damage. They're moving out of the state of Florida even. I spoke to someone recently in Washington State, and they said that they literally have fields flooded with Hurricane Ian boats with people trying to escape the stigma of Hurricane Ian and not have to disclose the damage of it. So that was just one example of a customer that was caught up in the process.
Curiosity, when you sell a house, you have to have a seller's disclosure. I know that if you ask a question, it has to be answered. When you're selling a boat, if you ask the person selling the boat, questions, do they legally have to answer those questions?
It really is dependent upon the state. So if you flat out ask, does this boat have any significant negative events I should know about? Or does this boat have damage? Has this boat been an insurance loss? If the broker or the dealer knows about it, then yes, they should be disclosing that information. Especially if they're a dealer associated with any of the major organizations. You've got the International Yacht Broker Association of America based in South Florida. You've got Certified Yacht Broker Association, I think is based in Annapolis. So you have a couple of these big organizations, and right in their bylaws and right in their requirements is that they disclose all information that they know about the vessel. So if you ask that point blank, then yes, they are required or supposed to answer that question. But many people don't know to answer. So I'm glad you brought it, or don't know to ask that. And I'm really glad you brought it up. We actually just helped a customer this week that bought a boat, and 3 weeks later started having problems with it. They bought it before buying a boat history report. So 3 weeks later, they started having problems with it. They started noticing some issues. They bought a boat history report. Turns out it was a Hurricane Ian boat. They're in North Carolina. So they bought this boat in North Carolina, and it was a Hurricane Ian loss. And they specifically asked, do I have any recourse with the seller? And, our response, unfortunately, we're not attorneys, so we can't give legal advice, but our response is, did you specifically ask them whether or not this vessel had damage? And if so, you'll have a little bit more of a leg to stand on in that conversation. But it's definitely worth going back to the seller and asking them those specific questions.
People definitely do not know you exist. I did not know you exist. I had I had a Bayliner, 2016 Bayliner that I bought brand new. And about 3 weeks ago, I got a phone call from the fellow who bought the boat from, I consigned it when I sold it on consignment at a dealership when I sold it. And it's been over a year ago. It's been like 2 years ago when I sold it. My phone rang and they asked for my husband on my phone. And that's because the boat was in my husband's name. And my husband, I can barely get him to answer the phone half the time when I call. So he's sure as heck not going to answer the phone when he doesn't recognize the phone number. And so I said, this is his wife. Can I help you? And he said, well, I'm calling to ask him information about his boat. Well, then if you knew my husband, you know how funny that is my husband never drove the boat. Like, it's my boat. My husband's not a
Right.
boater. He bought the boat for me. And so I was like, well, it's my boat. I can answer any questions. I said, I'm the only person who ever drove that boat. He was like, oh, fantastic. He's like, well, I was trying to call and get the boat history from you. And I was like, well, I think you and I are the only people, unless he's like, no, I bought it. And he told me where he bought it from. And he was like, I was just trying to get the boat history. He had already bought the boat as well. And so he didn't know boat history report existed. I didn't know boat history report existed. He did the same thing I would have done. If I was going to go buy a used boat these days, I would look who the previous owner was, and I would try to reach out and track them down, and not knowing that you guys existed. I mean, it just so happened I was scrolling through Eric's page, it popped up and you guys were there. But you better believe that if I ever I'm not going to be nervous about buying a used boat anymore. I'm not nervous about buying a used car anymore, because I can get a Car Fax report and it shows me the maintenance history. And after I went online and looked, which I'm going to try to do another screen share right now. After I went online and was able to look and see the, it even shows, did I see that? Am I correct? Did it even show some maintenance records on what you all showed on the, so here, I just pulled up the boathistoryreport.com is the website that you go to. Yep. And you can, it shows where you can type in the VIN, which is the HIN lookup. And it's going to show, you can view a sample report. And so I'll kind of let you elaborate as I scroll through here, what all is on here.
Yeah, so you can actually use the whole identification number, or you can use a state registration number. A lot of times people don't know the whole ID, but they can get the state reg number from a picture. Or if the vessel is a Coast Guard documented vessel, you can use the documentation number. So you can search one of three ways, which is really helpful. The report itself, we've got different levels of the report. So we have the accident damage right at the top. That comes from law enforcement accidents and state accident reports that go through the Coast Guard. And then we have damage. So that's going to include any number of damage events, significant negative events. It'll also include our theft. So if the vessel was a total loss, or if it had significant damage from a hurricane, sinking, salvage, anything like that, that's where you're going to find that information. We have the Coast Guard documentation data in the next section, and then state data. So we work with every state for DMV, DNR data. There's 22 states that title and register boats at the DMV. There's the rest of them do at a different division within the state, separate from the DMV. Also, I'm not sure if everybody knows this, but there are 8 states that don't title boats still. So there are 8 states that don't title boats, but the rest of the states do title boats at this point, which is fantastic. And then we've got IRS custom seizures. Additional information will include things like district data or the PISIX data from the Coast Guard, marine surveyors. We have an excellent network of marine surveyors, and we get survey summaries and information from marine surveyors if the boat was offered through auction. So that type of information will show up there. And then we offer a warranty and recall section. The recall includes recalls, any potential recalls for the vessel, and any potential warranties that we're aware of for the vessel. So those are kind of provided just as a courtesy to make things a little easier.
And then I noticed down here on the accident check where it'll actually tell you the vessels involved and if the accident location. I mean, it really goes into detail on a lot of this stuff. Damage checks. I mean, the amount of detail, let's see here. This was the U.S. Coast Guard documentation data. It goes through all the different dates. I mean, this is really, I was impressed with all the different information that you could get from it's more invasive than the Car Fax on your car. The information you get in comparison.
It's got a lot of really good data. I think some of the big differences between a boat history report and a Car Fax, you are going to get those maintenance records. We actually don't include maintenance records because there's some critical differences between whole identification numbers and VIN. So a VIN includes it actually has a check digit within it to make sure that there's no errors that are input. It has all of the model information. It has the engine information, the features encoded into the VIN. On a whole identification number, the only information that you can extrapolate from a HIN is the model, And then the date of manufacture or certification, depending on whether or not that vessel has navigation lights, or it's the vessel year when manufacturer production began on the vessel, and then the model year. So you're just getting some very basic information. And components within a vessel change out all the time. There's no specific serial numbers for them. There's nothing that links them to a whole identification number. So we don't include the maintenance records, but we do have quite a bit of very important information when you're looking at that Coast Guard documentation and that state data. It can give you an indication of how many owners the vessel has had, where the boat has been. Specifically, saltwater use versus freshwater use is always very valuable, especially when it is coming out of a saltwater state. How many states the boat has been in. You know, we see all the time someone says, oh, it's a one owner boat, or it's only ever been, you know, in freshwater, but then you can see that it was previously registered in Florida, or you can see that it was boarded in the Florida Keys. I've got news for you. If it was boarded in the Florida Keys, it was used in saltwater. And so, you know, you have the ability to really fact check what you're being told by the seller. And then you've got you've got your length, you've got your year. Here, I think if you were to scroll over, you might even go all the way back to 1997 with original Coast Guard documentation. So 1998 was when this boat was first documented. And so you see all these vessel name changes throughout its life as well.
Yep. Okay, let's see here. Then there was the state data they went through. Yeah, it's just got so much stuff on there. I think what I saw earlier and thought was a maintenance record was under the accident. It was showing everything that happened, the repairs for that.
Yeah, in the accident section, it gives you a narrative. We also have additional details too. So anytime somebody has a question about the reports, we're very accessible. We want to help, and we want to talk through the boat, and we want to help you feel comfortable with the information that's in there. So, you know, we're based here in the US. I'm down in South Florida, and I'm happy to talk to anybody at any time when they have a question about the service.
Yeah, and it talks about the reported boat damage. It even tells you how much how much damage was done to the boat, like as far as the monetary amount, how much was paid out. The repair. So that kind of tells you how big of a, you know, it says this one here was a collision with a vessel and it was $5,000. And so I know how much, I recently had to have a repair done on a wave runner, and I paid $1,500 for a really small, so $5,000 for a collision of boat, that probably was not a very big accident. So
yeah, probably not. And there's different damage thresholds. And so, you know, we report anything that's over the damage threshold. Some states, the damage threshold is $500. So if there's an accident in that state and the damage threshold is over 500, then you're required to report it. Some states it's 2,000. So it really just depends on what state it's in as far as that damage threshold goes. But we do see many accidents where it was clearly a total loss. It was sunk, and that damage amount is significant.
Have you ever seen any of, like, what's probably one of the wildest ones you've seen is somebody trying to pass off a boat as, like, you know, mint condition, and it's not hardly.
Yeah, we've got an excellent ad that we run sometimes that shows like a vessel that's literally underwater, and it says freshly washed, new upholstery, and then it crosses that out. It says freshly washed, you know, and it was just pulled up from the bottom of the sea. So yeah, gosh, there's so many like interesting scenarios where we'll see people that try and alter the HIN to get away from the damage. So they'll give somebody a bad HIN, and then that person will try and run a report on our site, and we'll tell them, you know, that's not the right HIN, and we'll run it by a state registration number, and boom, there's the damage. And you know, they go back and ask, oh, I don't know anything about that. And we can look at it and see that the damage was literally under their name, or they bought it out of auction. And so, you know, there's some interesting scenarios like that, but we definitely see, there's been a couple instances, I think the more interesting instances, where we see a boat was totaled with one insurance company, and then like 6 months later it was sold through auction, bought out of auction, and then totaled through a new insurance company for the same exact damage. And so it's unlikely that it was damaged the exact same way for the same amount and insured for the same amount, you know, 6 months apart.
Fraud. That's like insurance fraud was committed. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, there's some of that. We saw,
that's interesting how easy that would be, because my boat, I have a 2022, which our people who listen are probably sick and tired of hearing me talk about it. But I have a 2022 Avalon that I bought brand new that was totaled this past season. It was up on a lift, and a big wave came through in a storm, and it twisted the the frame. And so my boat was totaled. And nobody's gonna know it's totaled but me. And I haven't gotten any form of a title that says it's a salvage title or anything else. Now, I'm an honest person. Yeah. And I'm an honest person. And everybody that I know that would be interested in buying my boat knows that boat is total. But if I wasn't an honest person, I could go to Tennessee, I bet, and sell that boat. And somebody who's doesn't know what they're looking at would think that they are buying, a perfectly good Tri-Tune, because by looking at it, if you're not an educated boater, you would think there's nothing wrong with that boat. Is there anything, is there anything that would protect people? Because is something like that going to pop on a boat history report? How would you, if I want to sell my boat, how do I get that to pop on a boat history report? When I go to sell my boat, I want to make sure that is going to show up. How do I get that to happen?
Yeah, so I think you have put in an insurance claim on that. So if it was an insurance total loss payout, we should definitely have it because we work with the insurance providers on that. So we can test that later offline, but we should have that in our report.
Yeah.
So we should already have it, but it's interesting you say like you don't have a title that says anything about it. There's something called the Uniform Certificate of Vessels, Uniform Certificate of Title Act for vessels, and UCOTA by short. And it is the same on the car side that requires branding of cars. So if you have a car that's, rebuilt or salvaged or whatever, flooded, whatever it is, and it has this brand on it, that exists for boats. It started in 2011. It's been very slow to adopt. There's only a handful of states that have adopted this. There's 6 states, to be exact, that have adopted it. Florida and Alabama were the last 2 states to adopt it. Alabama just adopting it this January. The only brand that's recognized under this is a federal level brand called hull damage. So HULL damaged. And it can be elision, collision, lightning, sinking, hurricane damage. There's a series of things that would trigger this to go on the vessel. In every state that has adopted it, if you are the owner of the vessel, and it sounds like you still have the boat, right? So you got an insurance payout, bought it out of auction, you still have it. So the insurance company technically in every state is required to report that if they take ownership of the vessel. But if they don't take ownership of the vessel, then the owner is required to report it. And if the owner doesn't report it to the state to get the title branded correctly in those states, then they can be liable for fines. In Florida, it's $5,000 for the first offense, up to $25,000 per offense after the 3rd time. So again, there's only a handful of states that do have hull damage. The majority of states, if there's a title, you could have literally a single shred of fiberglass and you would have a clean title. And that's one of the most deceiving things that you'll see when somebody's selling a boat. Clean title, boasting clean title, this boat's in immaculate condition, hardly used. And when you look at a report, you can see the ownership change of hands. So you can see that, a new title was issued on this date and then a new title was issued 2 months later. And that typically indicates auction. Someone bought it out of auction. Now they're turning around and trying to sell it. So there are some excellent things that you can verify, trust yet verify. That's our policy, right? So you want to trust, we're very trusting people. We want to believe that there's good in the world. So we trust, but we are going to use something to verify the facts. And until there are more states, there's been a lot more interest in these titling laws. Tennessee was very, very interested in trying to move forward with it. They had the whole Pickwick Lake incident. Do you remember this or have you heard of this?
I believe so.
Okay. And that was where one dealer was selling the same boat to several people because there's no title in Tennessee. And so they would sell it to someone with a registration and then they would say, you can just keep it here and use it here. And then they would turn around and sell it to someone else. And so at the end of the day, there were like 4 or 5 victims. And the only person that actually had ownership of the vessel was the last person because there wasn't a title. So, more and more states are adopting it. Tennessee really wanted to adopt it after something like that happened. There's also an amazing episode of American Greed, the Michael Vorse episode. So if you haven't seen that, I strongly recommend it. And again, it was a titling issue. Someone from Michigan was, Tennessee didn't title. Tennessee, I'm not trying to pick on you here. I'm sorry. I love Tennessee.
Well, it's a joke around here because we're one county from Tennessee.
Okay.
If something comes up on the lake, a boat gets totaled or whatever, or a boat gets wrecked. The big joke around here is it'll be for sale in Tennessee soon. Like, I mean,
Exactly.
everybody down here is like, the boat got stolen, go look in Tennessee. I mean, because
Right.
it's an ongoing, because we are one county from Tennessee, and everybody, if your boat gets stolen, or if everybody you'll find it in Tennessee.
In Tennessee, yeah. Yeah, there's 8 non-titling states, or definitely states where you could find some more unscrupulous activity. So this is a message to all you 8 states. Please do your please start titling. But yeah, anyways, there are some things in place that you can do to try and avoid. Obviously, running a boat history report would be, in my opinion, the first step. Doing a survey, depending on the size of the boat. Obviously, smaller boats, it doesn't necessarily make sense to do a survey just because surveys can be so expensive. But we are strong supporters of marine surveyors. In fact, I leave Saturday for the International Association of Marine Investigators Conference. I'm a board member and put on the training, did all the training for 5 days. So we love our marine surveyors, and I think it's an excellent thing, especially on those larger boats. But unfortunately, there are lots of opportunities for fraud to happen.
Yeah. So if somebody was looking for a boat surveyor, could they call you guys and you guys suggest someone in their area?
So, we always suggest using an accredited marine surveyor. So there's a couple big, the NAMS and SAMs are the biggest accreditations. We do have a handful of marine surveyors that we work with that have been vetted and verified. And certainly if somebody were to call us and ask if we had a surveyor in their area, we would definitely recommend them.
Okay.
But generally, we always suggest using NAMS or SAMs. Obviously, the recommendation in general is find your own marine surveyor. Don't necessarily use the one that's being suggested to you unless it's by a trusted source. But definitely a NAMS or SAMs marine surveyor. And I'm not trying to, there are other accredited services out there. So as long as you're using someone that comes through the accreditation process and verify that accreditation.
Yeah. So I cater to women. A lot of my, I teach women classes. And so I am finding, unfortunately, that the boating industry is still very male dominated. And so when you are a female boater and you are going out to buy a boat, in a lot of cases, you will be taken advantage of because I'm just going to say it as it is. A lot of times, I mean, because it is, I was an ignorant boat buyer when I first got into boating. I did not know what I was going to buy. And so you'll see things like, you can go to a boat show and you'll see a tri-tune with a 400 horsepower engine with the smallest tunes on the face of the planet on it. You're not going to get very far. That boat should have a 150 horsepower engine on it. But because people don't know and they're like, oh, 400 horsepower, I'm going to go buy that boat. It's going to be fast. No, it's not.
Right.
That boat should not have
more
that
to it.
Yeah. People, they just don't know. And so, I own a campground and we cater to boaters. We are in the tourism industry. All of my campers, the majority of them are boaters. And so, and I know about specific boats. I know quite a bit about tri-tunes. And so if you were to go to our back lot, the majority of the boats back here are tri-tunes because it's mostly families who camp. And so, people of all ages now love tri-tunes. It used to kind of be the older people boat, but now
Right.
you got the faster engines on them. And so everybody loves because you can hold so many people. And so, I teach a lot of women classes and twice a year. And, in the last 3 years, I've taught 111 people, 111
Wow.
women just in our area. And, about 20 of them have gone out and bought boats and I've helped them through that process. And I have my trusted people that I will send them to. And because I know they're not going to rip them off and, guys and girls that I'll send them to. And so, it can be a little hard these days. And so I'm always looking for people to try to send. This is the houseboat capital of is it still the world? Is Lake Cumberland still the houseboat capital of the world? Like it's huge down here. We have so many houseboats on Lake Cumberland. And so, I don't know of any women surveyors in our area that do this type of work. And I do know that there are a couple surveyors down here. I've never bought a houseboat. I don't know who to trust in that market. So those organizations would be people that they could reach out to try to find out whether or not these are people who that they can trust when it comes to, because this is a small area. You have the good old boys club down here still, and if you are an ignorant boat buyer, you're gonna find yourself in a world of a mess trying to buy a boat.
Yeah, well, and so I work with, as I mentioned, I do work with a lot of marine surveyors, especially through the International Association of Marine Investigators. And so if somebody ever had a question or was looking for a recommendation, like please, I'll make sure that my email address is available at the end. But please just make sure that they reach out to me. And if I can connect them through that network with somebody that they can trust, somebody that I personally know that I know they can trust, I'm always happy to do it because I agree, and women, it's definitely a male dominated industry. I 100% agree with that. Anytime I go to an event, I'm always astonished at the difference. But I mean, even, there's so many first time boaters that, any first time boater, if they're not walking in with the knowledge that they need ahead of time, it's just very easy to be taken aback by everything. Boating is very different from cars, and there's a lot more that goes into it. There's a lot of different safety things that you have to think about. With a car, if you have to use the restroom, you stop and pull over and use the restroom. With a boat, I mean, if you're me, you jump in the water, but maybe not everybody does that. And so, there's things like that you have to think about. Or if you get into trouble and you're out on the water, you can't just get out of your boat and walk, to safety. And so, there are a lot of things that you really want to understand prior to going into that situation. And, I know this day and age too, everything's kind of gone virtual, right? So people are buying boats sight unseen because they're going through the whole process before they even get in. And so if there's anything that we can do ever to help someone that's in that process, I mean, it sounds like you're very similar. Of course we want to help you. We want you to be on the water, but we want you to be on the water in a boat, one that makes sense for you. It's not too powerful, it's not underpowered, and that's safe. We want you to have those safe memories and not see your boat end up on our reports later on. So
yep. And I do. And then as soon as I have friends, everybody buys a boat, I send them straight to the Coast Guard Auxiliary to get it inspected. I'm like, go get your vessel check. Make sure you have everything you need. And especially out here on our water, you're going to get pulled over. You're going to get boarded. We're on a Corps of Engineer owned water. As soon as you launch that boat, you give permission for it to be boarded. They don't have to have probable cause to board your boat. And 99% of the time, they're only boarding your boat to make sure that you're being a safe boater, that you have everything that you need. And so, well, this has been awesome. I want to let all of our listeners know that if you are in the market to purchase a boat, and it's a used boat, that Caroline is offering a $10 off discount. And so you will email Boatress at boathistory.com, and then they will respond to your email with the discount code and how to get that $10 off. So if you are currently in the market for a new boat, there is no way I would buy a new boat, especially now knowing about the boat history report. So Caroline, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to put kind of a staggering statistic out there that we have seen. This is from our data alone. So just looking at our data, we have 150 million records, 25 million unique hull IDs, and then over 2 million significant negative events. And looking at our data, about 1 in 17 boats has a significant negative event in its history. So it's a lot higher than you might think it is. I'm not trying to scare anyone out of boating, because just because it has a history doesn't mean that it's not an amazing boat. A lot of boats are repaired to better than new condition. But it's definitely something that you want to spend a couple minutes on researching. So
no, absolutely. And I'm always nervous about buying. I was a single mom for so many years. And so I was the only one that I could be dependent on when it came to a car. So I always bought new cars because I didn't want to get a car that had a problem and then be stuck in a financial situation where I had to make a car payment and a repair payment. And so I wasn't aware of, I had been out of boating for so long that I wasn't aware of all of the like marine assist type programs these days, where if your boat breaks down on the water. And so when I came down here and when I bought my first boat, I bought a new boat because I was afraid that I knew I was going to be boating by myself with my kids because my husband's not a boater. And so I knew I was going to be out on the water that way. Now, knowing what I know with having more boater knowledge, I would buy a used boat, and it still scared me not knowing that I would know the history of the boat and not being trusting of people who are selling me the boats. Now, I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous anymore.
I appreciate that.
I will buy a used boat and if it doesn't have a boat history report for some reason, I'm not buying it. I mean,
it's probably because it's a bad hen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we can do any boat.
Yeah, there is no reason nowadays to buy a used boat and not get a boat history report. And your pricing, if you want to discuss the pricing real quick, I forgot to go over that part. Your prices are great. I feel like the prices are very realistic.
So yeah, I mean, you're looking at a used boat, typically a little more expensive sometimes than pre-owned cars. So the single report is $60, and then for 6 reports, you can get 6 reports for $100, and that gives you the opportunity. So that's really for somebody that's in the market for boat, but they haven't necessarily narrowed it down to one boat. So that's definitely when you're starting that process and starting that journey, then you'd have the ability to run on any boat you come across.
And for myself personally, if I've decided on a boat and I'm in the process of negotiating that, I would talk to whoever the broker is, and I would tell them that I'm pretty sure we've settled on a price. That's the boat I want. I'd like for them to get me the boat history report. Period.
Yeah.
If you want me to buy this boat, you'll get the boat history report, because more than likely, your broker that you're working with is going to have an account set up with you guys, and they're going to be able to get it through their their bulk account that they have, and if they don't have one, they should. And so, so that's kind of how I look at it as a consumer, as a person who's going to be, and as a business owner. If I was selling boats, I would have an account with you guys. I think that's crazy, knowing what I know now. If you're going to go buy a boat, then you find a boat you want, tell them, negotiate that into it. I want the boat history report. We've already negotiated a price. I'm sure this is the one I want. I'd like for you to get the boat history report for me. And if they say,
we have many that buy it for the customers. So we work with many brokers and dealers. They offer it for the customer. They put it right out there because they want to show you that they're not hiding anything. They fully believe in the boats that they're representing or the boats that they're selling. And we always recommend working with a dealer or broker that's going to offer that service to you.
Oh, and then one more thing. I just realized I saw it on the .com page, your boathistoryreport.com. With the boat report comes the Boat US, the Towboat US membership.
Yeah, Boat US. Yeah, you get a Boat US membership. So it comes with the basic Boat US membership, and then a significant discount off the upper packages. So if you wanted to upgrade to like saltwater, unlimited towing, then you get a really high discount off that saltwater unlimited towing package. So yeah, it's an excellent benefit.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost in the pricing of that, because I know what those run. It's almost a wash. So I mean, I felt like, and I also would not own a boat and not have a tow package. So I'm kind of like, yeah, and not have towing. So this is perfect. I'm like, this is amazing. So, but this really took a lot of the fear out of buying a used boat for me. It truly did. And I will also encourage more people to buy used boats, to where before I was not. If you can, I always encourage, if you can afford it, buy a new boat. Just so you don't have to have the constant worry of having issues. And now I'm not as nervous about it. So I appreciate that.
And I'll say I bought a new Explorer, and I've had 3 recalls on it and a window that didn't go up. So, I mean, if you're going to have the problems anyway, save yourself some money and go pre-owned.
Yeah, absolutely. I get it. All right. Well, Caroline, thank you very much for the discount for our listeners, and for helping me to educate our listeners. And if anybody has any questions or anything, you can email Caroline. Caroline, what's a phone number they can reach you, and an email address?
Sure. So I'll give my cell phone number. So it's 941-266-7391. And then an email address, great email address would be Caroline, CAROLINE @boathistory.com.
All right. And then you can always reach out to us through our Facebook pages, through Dockside Live or the Boatress, and any questions, I can forward them to Caroline. So again, thank you for being with us, and thanks for listening to the Boatress, Dora Miles, on Dockside Live.
Thank you.